Hello, good evening. Good evening. Welcome. Welcome. My name is Okindanko. I want to share with you today what I call what we can teach or things that we can teach our children about entrepreneurship and the world that they are likely to live in. The things that we can teach about our children, about entrepreneurship to our children and the possible world that they are to live in. Most parents are very much interested in the future that their children are going to live in. They are much concerned about the profession that their children take. They don't want their children to be poor. It's a good um, human wish that we want the best for those that we give birth to, and then the generation that will come after us. I foresee this generation, the next 20 years, the next 30 years, as a generation which will have to rely heavily on creativity, on innovation, on sense of purpose. I see the kind of generation that our children will live in as a generation that will not want to be controlled with jobs, will not want to be controlled by government structure and systems. And you can see it. The last 10, 20 years, even those of us in Africa, even though we are not the ones creating the technology, we seem to be the ones consuming the technology. You can see the kind of disruption that the internet has brought to the world, especially things like Facebook, WhatsApp, the social media, the flow of data, the flow of information. It's almost now very tough for governments of the world to control people. The other day there was somebody picked the camera, shot a police officer who was bullying another woman, another person, and the next minute the video is on the internet and the business that was involved, the officer, you could see the anger that came out of that. So it's the world that maybe when we were around 15, 10, we could not foresee. Now, this is what I think our children are likely to meet. But there are things that all of us can help them to look at. You may know you cannot impose your wish on them because they are not going to take it. But you can help them with some kind of basic understanding of issues and how they can take their own destiny in their own hands. The kind of work that I am seeing, especially with respect to entrepreneurship, is that's the kind of work the children are going to live in. Even in our time, you can hear the percentages of the things they call unemployment, graduate unemployment, all these things you keep hearing, or people living in constant fear of them losing their jobs. You don't want your children to be that way. And unfortunately, even though the children are going to live in a different world, the preparation that the children are currently having, they are not different from the kind of preparation that they gave us. The kind of aspirations, the kind of things that they paid attention to, the kind of things that they gave a lot of importance to. One of it is education, a school. When we were growing up, it was go to school and you become prominent. They told us, and you will have to become an engineer. So when we went to school, we were studying, we were learning. It was our future. I remember some of our friends at Okoboy schools. There was a guy who came from another town in Asante, actually in Chepram. So the guy, the first day that we went to school, he went to take a bucket and put water in, and he put his leg in. He was learning. Why? Because he wanted to become very successful with his education. That is the kind of world we live in. And when somebody was good academically, we thought that that person had some kind of prospect. And I think that is still hanging. That is still the prevalent belief. Maybe not globally, but the Africans are still caught up in that quagmire, where we give a lot of importance, a lot of attention to the academics, and we give it so much attention. Yet the children, those who are now 10, 15, 12, that is not the kind of world that they are going to live in. The kind of world that we are going to live in, we are not preparing them for it. We are preparing them based on the kind of, when the child is first in the class, you see the parents are very happy. They give them a lot of classes. They want them to get the A, the B. We want them to go to, what they call preparatory school or international school. Some of them I even send their children to British school, American school, thinking that those kind of content will separate the children and make them successful. If they are likely to be employed, maybe, maybe. If they are likely to be politicians, maybe that will be a good option. But the fact is that a large percentage of them are not going to be that. A large percentage of them would have to leave and would have to create their own future. They would have to be responsible for their own finances. They would have to. There's going to be a lot of demand in terms of ethics, in terms of openness, in terms of accountability. The kind of world that these children will live in, there will be that. There will be that. So we have to prepare them differently. And unfortunately, the parents, my generation, those who came before us, those who have come after us, they're not thinking like that. They're still telling their children. You see the open day or graduation day, the things that they ask the child, what do you want to become? A police officer, they make them dress like that. What do you want to become? An engineer, they make them dress like that. What do you want to become? A doctor, they make them dress like that. A soldier man, a pastor with suit and tie. If you are going to continue the corruption, that may be a right approach. But if we are going to evolve and develop as a continent, these children must be trained to have the things that will be needed for that future. And I think that entrepreneurship will be so much, will be so much needed. Even if they don't end up owning businesses, they will end up working in industries, in companies. And if they work with these kind of things that I may share with you, I think that it will separate them and it will make them successful. The graduate unemployment is going to continue. The government who are saying that they are going to create a lot of jobs, they may, but the percentages will not help them because we still have to produce a lot of these guys, and it's a must. Even if they are not getting jobs, I think we still must produce people who can read, who can write, who can get some kind of education, whether it's vocational education, technical education, university education, polytechnic education, whatever education that we have to give our people, we must give them. Now, we should train them to know that the fact that you're being given education does not mean that you're qualified for a job. That must be taught the children. And after all, you as a parent, when you believe that when you were a child, when you were young, when you were in the secondary school, when you were in the university, and you so much believe that you're going to be successful because you are very intelligent. After all, now you have seen the reality that there is, especially when it comes to living a fulfilling, successful life, the life that is driven by your passion, by your ambition, where you are not in penury and lack and asking and begging and not afraid of you being fired from your job. That kind of life where you control a lot of things, a lot of things are controlled by you. You know that it had nothing to do with the fact that you were first in your class or last in your class. So that is the kind of mindset that you may have to teach your child. The child may have the talent to be whatever. That is a talent, that's a raw talent. They may need education to polish it, but that talent will lead them into a profession. that does not necessarily mean that they are going to be financially independent. So they would have to see that for them to become financially independent, they have to take that responsibility themselves. Now, the thing about entrepreneurship, which you would want them to look at, is that, especially from the African perspective, is that we still a very much primary economy. We still very much, there are so many things that we don't produce. There are so many things that we have got to let produce people who can think and innovate and produce. And these things are going to be done by people, or they are going to be taken to the market by entrepreneurs, by people who can take a risk and build an idea into a business. And so that if anybody is equipped like that, there's no way that person is going to finish school or complete school and be waiting for somebody to employ them, and for the parents to be worried about what they have become. You are going to be worried because one way or the other, the choices that you are making for these children, they are shaping them to a certain life. It's not that tomorrow they will jump up, they will get up. Not the way they tell us, oh, graduates go and find business. It does not happen like that. The moment you see somebody doing business, it has taken over 10, 20 years to formulate that kind of psyche, that kind of mindset, to have patterned, whether he knew it or he didn't know it. There were some ingredients that the person had along the line. That's why they opted to start businesses. It doesn't just happen by somebody saying they want to start business. So but parents can help their children to take that part, because that's the world that they're going to live in. It's going to be a world that is to be very, very much competitive for those who think traditionally. Traditionally means that they think of success in terms of going to school, in terms of getting degrees and looking for job, marrying. Those are traditional thinking. It is going to be very much open to those who think contrary to that kind of thinking, and it falls heavily in entrepreneurship, because the kind of training that you have to become an entrepreneur is almost always opposite to the kind of traditional education that they have given us. And so you may have to help your children, to at least start to think along that line. And if they even don't start with their own businesses, they would be equipped to become very much effective in the area that they work. One of the things that you would want them to develop will be the ability to think differently, the ability for these children to think differently. Whatever that you can do to help these children to question the status quo, and not to now them and let them be conformed to your culture and your standard. If it's moral issues, yes, I agree. I mean, the things that are morally not acceptable, I agree. But the things that are just cultural, that they have to ask, why have we been doing this for years and we don't have results? You should be able to instill in your child to ask questions. The Africans, they have to be trained to ask serious questions, because that is the kind of future they are going to live in. And if you're telling them, or if you're developing them to have this kind of mindset where they'll be able to create their own future, because there's nothing that, if you put any entrepreneur anywhere, whether it's in the desert, on the sea, in Africa, in America, these skills that they have, they can create any life that they want, because they can question. So you want your child to question. You don't just be happy because your child is getting A in school. That's a sign of conformity, because the content of education is not built on the child to ask a lot of questions. They don't allow them to ask questions, especially those from primary one to junior high. Even all through the education that they gave us, and they still continue to give them, we are not training our people to ask and question things and think independently and think based on their personality. We don't do that. And so, as a parent, you may have to have a plan for these children to ask questions, or they will finish school, they will become doctors, lawyers, and they just think like everybody else. And the future that they are going to live in that future is not going to be like ours. It will be different. So much different that those who will be successful will live out of that independence in thinking. So help your children to think separately and to ask questions and to see which is wrong. It's not just so much about the cartoon that they're watching, because cartoon is also it's good. It can make them innovative, but it also, in a way, forming them into into a certain structure. So you may develop a pattern for your children to think and to think independently. The other thing that you would want to help them is for them to see any kind of work that anybody does as important as any work. So your children should be able to see somebody who is cleaning as important as somebody who is maybe a soldier or a police officer or a doctor. That thinking should be in them, so that they will not grow up thinking that they must be a lawyer, they must be an engineer, because that is the only thing that anybody or people respect. Because for the entrepreneur, you can create opportunities and work from anything that has a need at a particular point in time in any society. And that's what you have to train them to think and to see. If you look at the people who have opened a lot of, let's say, the provision shops, move around, you see a lot of people with shops. The kind of finances that they see, most of these guys with big suit and tie, speaking good English, calling themselves educated, have no idea the kind of revenue that these other people are making. So you have to let the children see that any work, any opportunity can be built into anything. The children must see that, so that they don't go to school, or they are not trained, programmed strictly to say that I have to become a doctor, I have to become a lawyer. And then there are so many other areas of society that nobody wants to take. So it's an entrepreneurship that you're trying to let them see that the world is so much separate from just the facade that is created around the traditional professions that we came to meet. After all, there are a lot of professions that may not even be that relevant when your children, who is 10 years now, maybe in their 30s or their 40s. There are professions that are just automatically not going to be needed. When if you look at even if they are needed, the competition will be so high. Before, there are professions that people just have to take the thing to them to do. Now people are learning programming, on their computer and doing it. There are people who are not architects but who can generate a lot of drawings for you. There are people who are not accountants who can just use a lot of accounting softwares and to interpret data, and they are doing it anyway. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who have no accounting background, but they're able to do basic things. So it is going to create that force, that momentum against some professions. So your child should be able to see opportunity in anything that there is a need for people to patronize. That's the kind of training that you have to give them. That's the kind of training that you have to give them. You have to also train them not only to think of just waiting for employment and salary, even though you may have been like that, and that's your choice in a very straight form. It was not just your choice, it was a program that was handed to you. You may not just have known it, but that was a program. The things that were instilled in you patterned you to always look for job. And so if you don't have a job, you panic. And they did not let you focus on the other things that could make you create your own opportunities and create your own life and not be disturbed. There is nothing wrong with getting a job, but the thing is that the children are not going to live in that kind of world that maybe there'll be a lot of job opportunities and people are creating. No, they would have to be equipped to think on their feet, be equipped to think independently, be equipped to create their own opportunities, their own jobs. These are the things that your children would have to have. You know, the other thing that you would want to express or instill in them would be financial knowledge. You don't let them teach them the chemistry, the life skill. You don't let them teach them the cultural studies, the mathematics, the English, the politics, the current affairs. Those are the things that they're teaching them. When it comes to finances, which adults you're having, all your life you're going to deal with money, but we're so much ill-equipped, unless you're some bit, and you're fortunate to have come from a family that may be taught you. So you have to, if you don't know it, you have to at least preempt them, let them know that there is something called financial education, and they must know it. And it goes beyond just working to be paid every month. And that if, because financial dependence has eluded a lot of the world's population. Majority of the world only work to be paid monthly. And if they are taking off the job, a lot of us will be scared. Most people cannot live without salary. Why? Because the financial knowledge that they handed to us was that weak. And you don't want your children to go through that. You don't want your children to go through that pain. And the earlier that you start to teach them, at least give them scenario, give them situation to handle, give them examples. Let them see the power of financial independence, financial knowledge. Because if they are not independent financially, they can never be independent anyway. If they don't like the work, they still have to go because they need the salary. And so you have to instill in them. And that has something to do with entrepreneurship as well. Because if they are able to handle their finances well, they carry it into their businesses or any other opportunity that they create for themselves, because there will always be, every vision must be financially financed or pushed. Every vision is financed. So they must understand. And it's a skill that you have to instill in them. And obviously, the school is not going to teach them this. The school is not going to teach them this. That's a fact. The other thing that you would want to teach them is that they don't have to be, they don't have to see themselves as inferior to other race. They don't have to see themselves as inferior to Chinese or inferior to the Indians or inferior to the Caucasians. That you have to teach them that there's nothing wrong with being an African, because then their confidence is shaped, their confidence is kept intact. You cannot raise a children or a group of children. Your children must not grow up looking for American visa, repudiating Africa and looking at us as nothing and savage and backward and guess. They cannot live in that kind of future. So you should teach them that they must be proud and they should be confident of their color, of their skin, and of their heritage. So it's so much important. Other than that, you see the programming that they're showing them, all the cartoons that they're showing them. They are programming them to look to America, to look to England, to look to all this world as the standard. And when it comes to Africa on the TV, it's subservient, it's backward, it's mosquitoes, it's war, it's political instability, it's conditioning. So if you, as a parent, if you don't take it upon yourself to also give them the other information, they will grow up, become lawyers, doctors, and they have no passion for here. They have no pride to be here, and they will not be committed to solving the problem. So entrepreneurship demands a lot of confidence, a lot of courage, risk-taking. And so if they are in doubt of themselves and they are in doubt of their skin color, they can easily be enslaved, if nothing at all, in their thoughts. And it takes that training to teach them to be proud of their heritage, to be proud of their Africanness, to be proud that there's nothing wrong here, and the problems here can be solved. Every problem in this world, a lot of them are man-created, and man can solve them. And it's part of them to grow up to solve these problems. And so if they are proud of being Africans, I think that it will work on their courage. It will work on their courage. They will not run away from the problems. That's why, for me, if you're training your child and say that I want to give them British education or that, I think that you're wounding them, especially if they happen to have come from here, because they will not do that part. And that is the part that builds their confidence, their psyche, their perspective, their courage. And if you have anybody who has defined that, if you see any African who has defined that, they are clear and they have sense of purpose. And nothing can stop them from pursuing their dreams. They are committed. They are resilient. You can see that they have strength. because that thing has been repaired. A lot of Africans have not repaired that. That thing of doubt of being African, because the negatives are so many that if you're not trained, if you don't have the right data, you constantly ask. And we have a lot of prominent Africans who have not corrected that. So when you hear them talk, you can see this one has this problem, and it's pervasive, it's prevalent, and most people don't know that is a problem. So let them deal with that inferiority complex, that doubt on the skin and on their heritage and as Africans. They don't have to become Europeans. They don't have to see Britain as the standard. They can also develop their own standard as Africans. Whatever that they're doing, they can do that. And you teach that. You give them that kind of information. It's very important. Or you raise up a generation that will always be enslaved, because they will be looking to other people as the standard. And I have nothing against the Chinese or the Indians or the Americans, but the Africans must be taught also to be assertive and believe that they are fully as humans and they can do whatever they can do based on what they have. The difference is just the right knowledge that we must have as a people. So you teach these children that thing. It's so much important. If you don't teach them, they'll be programmed. And of course, the kind of education that we are giving here, we've been giving all kind of creators and people who have come up with all kind of theories, and very few of them represent us. So there's a break in confidence, there's a break in creativity and innovation, even in educational content. And so you as a parent must teach them that way, because it will take a lot of courage, a lot of creativity, and a lot of self identity for them to become entrepreneurs. If you're in doubt of your identity, you'll not be sure of your future. And if anybody can tell you that you are inferior and you can embrace that, you cannot live a life of purpose, and definitely not as an entrepreneur. So this is the kind of life that the children are going to live in, and you must look at that. You should also let them understand that ethics are going to, for them, you train them to be very much ethical, because then they will be able to be realistic with the things that they do. So they have to grow with that, whether you like it or not. It's not just only don't chase the girls, and don't steal. It's also the boldness to say yes to yes and no to no, even if the whole population is against it. Once it's the better, or the closer the children can be taught to stand for truth, the better you can do something with them. Because anything that is not built on that will fail. So you want the best for your children, and you don't leave that for the school, the academics, because they cannot give everything, especially the ones we have here. You as a parent must teach them, and there's nothing that will be close to the kind of training that you're going to give them than entrepreneurship. Because in the future, spells like that, they have to be responsible for their own life, their own finances, their own creativity, and that is the way that they are going to also live a fulfilled life. The fact is that human beings don't want to be employed. That's a fact of life. Most people, if they had their own opportunity, they will not want to go to job. That's a fact. The only way that they are controlling all of us is because they told us that if you don't have salary, you can't get a place to rent, a car to drive, you can't send your children to school. That's why most people go to job. Very few people go to job out of purpose. And if they don't go, nothing will happen to them. Very few can say adult, irrespective of profession. As a lawyer, doctor, engineer, doesn't matter. Majority of them drag themselves to work because they need the salary. Human beings are not created for jobs. Human beings were created for work. And there is a difference. You job for the salary. You don't like it, but you need the money. That's where you go. For work, it's because it's something in you and you want to leave a mark. And whether they pay you or they don't pay you, it doesn't matter, because that's what you are and that's how you express yourself. That is work. Human beings were created for work, but not job. And it's difficult because majority of us, all that we know is the job. Because if you don't job, you don't get the nice house that you want. You will not get the laptop, the phone. Our children cannot go to school, because that is what the structure, the system has been structured that way. for people to look for job. And it's not because it's part of destiny or it's part of purpose. No, it's because they must. That's how you train your child to work, and part of it for them to work out of their soul, out of their creativity, out of with vision, with sense of destiny, is when they've been taught that this is it. This is the ultimate. That's why you can see somebody around 70 years, they still go to work even though they don't need the money. If they still don't need the money and they go to work every day, it's because they work to fulfill a cause. The other guy, if they pay him double salary, the next month he's not even going to work. He's not going to job because he's only going because he needs the money. That's why he's complaining all the time. Every day they say, "Thank God it's Friday." If you, if it's thank God it's Friday for you, your life is going to be screwed. It doesn't have to be. Humans were created to be employed, but humans, created to be deployed. That's it. They were not created to be employed, but to be deployed. That yes, I agree. So it's important that we do something for the children. We have to create that future for them. We have to help them to at least get the basis, and you don't leave them for just the school. There's a lot of information that the school cannot give, especially with the kind of world that these children are going to live in. So the ethics will be important. The confidence as Africans will be important. They must know that they are responsible for their future, and they must know that any work is professional so far as it meets need, and they can build a structure around it. So they should not just grow up looking for all these traditional things that they have told us, and it's been deceptive. And if you don't believe it, go and look at the time that they are in their retirement. Most of these professions, it's very fanciful when they are employed and they are getting a salary. The moment they go into retirement, go look at them. It doesn't matter the position that they had in government. A lot of them are miserable. Why? Because they did not know what they were doing in terms of finances, in terms of their retirement, in terms of the things that will make them to enjoy life and live life according to their own terms. So it's very important. Teach them how to set their own vision, their own goals, live on purpose. Teach them that. It's important. Teach them that. Don't leave it for the school. Don't leave it for the headmaster or the class teacher. Of course, the children have passion for their teachers. They love them. That's what they know. And they respect the teachers more than you. It's okay. It's okay, but your duty, the teacher's duty, is to prepare the child to finish, to write the exam and pass. It's just the exam that they are passing. Your duty as a parent is to prepare them for life. That is a different ballgame. You have to build their confidence, shape their mind, and teach them what it takes to live in the world that is coming. Because that world will be different from ours. So much different from ours. People will live out of their heart. Those who enjoy that world will be the people who live on purpose, not on jobs. Not on jobs. And it will not matter whether you live in Africa or anywhere. It will not matter. The world is being connected. Where you live will have nothing. They can live anywhere and create the future, so far as they are equipped with the right tools and the right skills. So my name is Kwabena. I'm talking about some of the things that you can teach your children about entrepreneurship and about the world that they will live in. And my argument is that they will live in a world that will require of them to live life that they create. They create the jobs will be competitive. The jobs will be competitive. You don't have to train them to live in a competitive world. You have to train them to live with their strength, with that which they're good at. And part of it will fall in entrepreneurship. Where they build their own, they create their own. Wherever that they are, they can build out of nothing. It's a skill that is not likely to be taught by that teacher. It has to be you as a parent, and you have to instill in them to have that sense of respect and dignity for people, that sense of value for people. You have to instill in them. They have to grow up respecting people. They have to grow up with that sense when they treat people, because it will be required. It will be required. People will stand up for their right. That's the world that the children will live in. You will not just sit down and say that I'm a chief, so I can say anything. They will challenge the chiefs. They will challenge the monarchs. You see the rate at which information is spreading everywhere. They will challenge them. That is the children. This is the world that they will stand up for their rights. They will actually have power. Like the way now, is it, there is an issue on social media, you see the way the government will just jump in. That's the power, and it's going to multiply. The future that children are going to live in the next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, it's going to be so much different, so much different, so much different, so much different from what we know, from what we know. So teach them not to look for job, but to work, to create their own future. Teach them finances, teach them to set their vision, teach them to be tough and deal with problems, teach them the ethics of work and hard work, teach them to work for results, and teach them to live beyond the school exam. Because the school exam, the school that whether they get A or C, is irrelevant. You have to build them to be strong and to be courageous and to take up pain and to endure and to live and not to be looking for people, waiting for people to help them. But they have to create the help that they will need themselves. That's the future for these children. And they have to think creatively and innovatively. And they should be ready to solve problems. Wherever they show up and there are problems, they have to be ready to solve them. This is the world that your children are going to live in. And a lot of these skills are skills that entrepreneurs have. And I dare say that majority of those children are going to live as entrepreneurs. That is true. If you don't believe it, look at the statistics. The jobs that government is creating and the number of students that you are going to produce. Now that we are doing free SHS, we are going to have a lot of people going to school. So we cannot train them to think that if you finish school, go look for a job. It's not going to be. The time is coming that every year we are going to produce maybe 700,000 students. And how many jobs that the whole government machinery can take. So a lot of them would have to just be skilled in entrepreneurship and to create the future themselves and to live the life that they want to live on their own terms, and their own terms. And it's important that we teach these children that. And you have to know that they can build life on their strength. On their strength. And none of them is ignorant. Even if they are not good in school, that's not mean that their life is going to be different. No. It's going to be different if you don't teach them these things. Once you start to teach them these things, they will succeed. Those are the reality. Because a lot of people who didn't even step in class, but because they found out these things. So look at the training that you're giving them. Look at the training that you're giving them and look at what you are putting in them. Because those are the things that are shaping what they are becoming. They are shaping what they become. Whether you like it or not. They are shaping what they become. So I would say thank you very much for watching. Thank you.